I want you to see something because it's very unique and very prevalent to what we're talking about here. This is where dialogue rules. Cam Newton shared his platform with one of the people who was a detractor of him on his show, his podcast show, and everything else. And not just him, Deion Sanders and other professional black athletes and entertainers he seemed to have such vitriol against, but he never has the same energy for white predecessors. And he does not even think about trying to critique them in any type of way. So we will be covering that, and this is what we're going through today. Don't forget to hit the like button. Subscribe to the page if you're new here. This is Carcino for Life. That's right. The super chat works, the Cash App work, all the wonderful things. Cash App is Carcino, Carceno. And yes, yes, yes. He said, I was just checking out the Usher and Justin Bieber video. That's the beautiful thing about it. If you want to see what happened between Usher and Justin Bieber and know the truth about what that whole conversation was about, it is on my Patreon right now. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And we shall begin. Now, here's a major problem here. We've been seeing that there has been a lot of stigmata put in with the beef that has transpired. And it definitely was saying that, Whitlock is explaining how misunderstood he is in his scenarios in his life, been completely misjudged.
When you say the misconceptions or people don't really want to hear, has there ever been a time from a said source that it has gotten to you where you may feel like that person took it too far?
That person took it too far as it relates to saying something about me? Yeah, I mean, I don't know if the answer I'm going to give you may be insufficient or it may go in a different direction. But yeah, I've had, long pieces written about me that have completely mischaracterized me, my work, everything about me. I've had, there used to be a powerful website called Deadspin that got in the habit of writing long pieces about me intended to slander me, diminish me, and they did it with lies. And so, yeah, I think that there was a time when Deadspin went way too far with me and had a systematic, calculated, paid for an attack on me. And so, yeah, that would be one instance where I would think people have gone too far. But as it relates to, the podcast or the social media space where, people, the Uncle Tom or House Negro or any of that's all water off my back because I know exactly who I am. And, those types of insults and slurs are said by people without much substance.
So, he's talking about me and everybody else, right? I think there's a great deal of substance there. But let's tackle that. Is Whitlock correct? Yes, he's very correct. The same people he was going after decided to fight back. And these same people would go, like people he worked with who weren't allowed to talk about another colleague, they would go to another place like Deadspin who had a bunch of former people who used to work there that were fired. And they would go there and they would either pay their buddies or they were friends with the guy who didn't like you. And they didn't like you either. So it really didn't take a lot of money to do it. It's that we're going to give you this information. You're going to put it out on your platform. Don't even give a source. And there it is. It's the news. And we're going to push it. And we're going to do an elaborate breakdown of this individual. And then when they see it posted, the other person be, yeah. Because they can't talk about a fellow colleague. It was normally in everyone's contract that work at the networks that they're not allowed to do such a things. Now, with that being said, what did Whitlock do to deserve such a thing to be called that? He's still doing the same acts in which of what he's doing now, predicating to white America. Now he wants to play he was the victim. As he admits, he was inspired by a journalist from Chicago who was unapologetic, had like one page in the Tribune, and that guy was rather unique because I couldn't believe he was allowed to write what he wrote. I came from a time of newspapers. I would be in high school reading newspapers. I would pay my 35 cents, get a newspaper, and read it. So I knew what was going on in the world when everyone else is just caring about ball games and everything else. I was up and aware and consciously aware of things that were going on in the world. Where me and my teacher was able to have conversations. Most teachers didn't have outside of school type of conversations with kids because they haven't experienced anything in the world. So when we started talking about things that I've read in the paper, they couldn't believe that I knew such things. So I could see how Whitlock can get inspired, but he got inspired by the wrong side of it. See, the problem with Jason Whitlock is a clear case of not saying that this individual, he might have been, it looked like to me he's always been a big guy, okay, where women didn't run up to him and look at him in endearing terms. He had every fat joke in America. Right? He didn't look like the very striking, attractive guy. And why do people like athletes? And they look up to like people like LeBron James, because those guys, Kobe Bryants and like the Deons and those professional athletes, they could do things that we physically couldn't do. And they were so exceptional in whatever the things that they were doing. Whether it's about your physical appearance or not, there's people that look like Cam Newton couldn't possibly do the feats that Cam Newton could do. And didn't have those disciplines. There was a reason that when you played football, you were like on the line. You weren't a running back, you weren't a wide receiver, you weren't a quarterback. They put you on the line because of your size. So no one's here to shame you for it, but still, they're gonna poke at you. When you sit behind your microphone, the same way they poke at me, they'll say something about me, call me fat or whatever. They do it all the time. So when you see these people that come along with all of these different innuendos to try to tear you down because it fits them, It fits their agenda. It fits the wall that they put up, right? They say, this is the wall. This is what we got here. This is where we need you to be. Okay? This is it. This is what we want from you. So whatever they try to tear down and take apart from you, you got to be able to stand firm. Now, what Cam is doing is like he would do in football practice. Cam Newton is taking notes. He's real good at taking notes. He was an NFL quarterback. Do you think they just put people in the quarterback position and say, go? You know they go to meetings, right? You know that he got to understand what RJ left, right, artist style 1 on 3 means when they tell it to him one time in a headset. Now he said, let's go agile 397 curl or 397 right, 397 curl. And if it's jettison, go right. Okay. They got to make these adjustments within 40 seconds. And for you to diminish a man's entire career because you don't understand the game that you actually played at a college level. You played at Ball State, for those who want to know. It goes outside of journalism. It goes into bullying because you have no facts to back up any of the things that you're talking about. A hairstyle does not make a quarterback great or not great. Okay? Now we're going to get there.
That you know of about Cam and
Fox Sports at that time.
Let's go
and
into
in the
his
writing
camp
space.
tape.
I had the power, the leverage, and I went to war with Thayer Evans, got crossways with my bosses because I kept telling them, like, hey, man, what is this guy doing? Cam Newton is out here balling out of control. I don't care that Cam and maybe his father sought some sort of payment from Auburn or whatever school he's played for. That's all irrelevant. They've created a corrupt system, and if Cam and his father are trying to manipulate that system to their financial gain, I don't care. And so went from huge Cam defender at Auburn, risked my relationship with superiors because I was like, hey, this isn't right. And then Cam early in his career in the NFL, John Elway is my favorite player of all time. Any player that reminds me of John Elway, I hop on the bandwagon immediately. That goes from Cam Newton to Colin Kaepernick. Early in his career, I'm a huge Cam Newton supporter in the NFL.
Now, what Cam just wrote down was very critical. While he's listening to Jason, he wrote down his favorite quarterback is John Elway. He wrote that down. I don't even have to know that's what Cam did. I know exactly. I saw it in his expression. He heard John Elway and said, okay, let me write down John Elway. Being criticized is one thing because you have a reason to criticize. But just tear down and attack is something entirely different. You have to have a reason, right? When I tell you about LeBron James, you know why that clip has got 3 million views? And climbing, that thing generates every year, every month, that video generates so much attention. Do you know why it continually grows and grows and grows? Because it proves a point. We gave validation to our statement with facts. And that 1 minute video that was chopped up and edited. We gave you all the facts. LeBron James couldn't dribble. He doesn't know how to run plays right. He doesn't play well off the ball. He doesn't play good defense, any whatsoever. He wasn't a great shooter of the basketball. So how would this guy be the greatest player of all time? It does not make sense. It does not go along with what we attribute to being the greatest player to ever play this game. Leadership quality absent. All of it. He's been predicated and manufactured and put on a pedestal. I give you the reasons why he isn't. I don't just say things and just like, LeBron James just sucked. Why? Because he sucked. No, I'm giving you the reasons behind it. And if we know all these things is true, why are we saying the opposite? Because there's an agenda in play. So now he's gone from I used to support Cam to now I'm against Cam. Let's see.
He reminds me of John Elway. I think this guy has a chance to go on to be, because I consider John Elway the greatest quarterback to ever play the game. I'm like, Cam could surpass him. Cam then, in my view, made a pivot to where he wanted to be a bit more of a cultural icon. And I thought it was a mistake. I think that when you're a franchise...
You see that response right there? You see that reaction from Cam? Soon as he heard cultural icon and he said that was a mistake, Cam went immediately to writing that down. What are these are? PowerPoints he's going to come back to. Everything that Whitlock is just saying, because he's saying them based off what Cam had said, and he's making a whole generalization based on a phrase that he said. Now this generalization is coming out. Look at that.
Quarterback, there's a clean-cut way that the organization wants you to present yourself. I think that young men, particularly young black men, have spent way too much time worrying about their hairstyle, their fashion statements, any of that. I think it's all a mistake. I think it's all a waste of energy. I think that it's an indication they've taken their eye off the ball as it relates to their career, and now they're worried about other things. And so I started becoming critical of Cam. I'm like, hey man, all this dress.
So he became critical of Cam, and it was not based around his actual game. He just said that. It did not have anything to do with his game. It had something to do with this thing they want the clean cut guy. Are you kidding me? There were football players that used to have mohawks under their helmets. White players who had mohawks. There were white players that had designs in the back of their heads. You mean black athletes need to act and dress accordingly? Clean cut. What is a clean cut? Clean cut. Cam was clean cut. He was everything they wanted everybody else to be. We're not going to draft a guy who got dreadlocks or braids. Why? He's getting the job done on the court. What does his fashion choice have to do with what he's playing like on the field? He's not wearing his clothes, his fashion on the field. So what does it matter to you what he dresses like? No one tells a white guy how to dress. So we all, as black people, have to dress like John Elway. We got to wear some khaki pants like John now. That's what the league wants. The league ain't gonna dress me coming to the game. I'm being dressed by the league when I go out there and play. When I got on these pads and this jersey and these damn tights. Besides that, when I get up out of here, the league can't tell me how the hell to dress, how the hell to talk, and definitely not about my hairstyle. You know why? Because if I did all those things, which Cam Newton did, he did all those things. He had the nice cut. He wore the sweater vest like he just came from rowing with the crew. He talked properly, well-mannered, and you still looked at him like an N-word. So if you're going to do that anyway, he took away all your excuses. Oh, he likes to run with the football. We're tired of all these quarterbacks that come. Cam threw for almost 4,000 yards. What are they talking about? So my thing is, and he came in the league like that. And they still got the same argument in 2026 that they had back then. With Lamar Jackson, they're still talking about he can't pass a football. He has one of the highest accuracy ratings. Seriously, he had one of the highest accuracy ratings. Lamar Jackson, from a passer. Mm-hmm. And guess what? He never had an all-pro wide receiver, just like Cam Newton never had an all-pro wide receiver. Cam Newton passed for 32,000 yards. What year did he come in? 2011? Cam threw for 4,000 yards his rookie year. Cam was a bum. He threw for over 4,000 yards his rookie year. Can you name one of Cam's receivers? They got rid of Mr. Steve Smith Sr. They got rid of him. Then he didn't have any wide receivers. You know, he went to the Super Bowl with a guy who was getting cut from the league everywhere he went because he dropped the ball. He was fast, but he had so many drops, nobody would take him on the team. Where was his last ditch stop? Carolina. In that 1 year, they go to the Super Bowl. He didn't drop anything until the Super Bowl. Cam has never thrown for under 3,000 yards passing when he was with Carolina. Into 2019, where he only played 2 games in Carolina. Every year, he passed for over 3,000 yards. And they tried to say he was a running quarterback. In his MVP year, when he threw 35 touchdowns and had, 10 interceptions, and they went to the Super Bowl, where he had a 99 rating as a quarterback. In 2018, he threw for 24 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, had a 94 rating. They let defenders tee off on Cam Newton, dive at his head, and knock people unconscious. Knock Cam unconscious. It was and then they would say, well, he should be big enough to take the hit. That's not the point. If you can't lead with your head, that's the rule. The rule don't say there's a weight limit to it. Cam is big enough to take it. What does that mean? He can get a concussion just like anybody else. And that made him very nervous in the pocket.
To that, I think all black men need to stand in opposition to that. And so, overall, I would say I see Cam as this great potential talent as a media force, but I see Cam doing things that are undermining his ability to impact the media the way that he could.
So let me ask you this, Jason.
So once he said that, he's doing things to impact him, meaning that you're not predicating to the white folks. Cam, you're loved by white people. Embrace white America and their society. Why are you predicating to the brothers who they chose Michael Vick over you? You from Atlanta, right? But you was a whole different way. Michael Vick ain't from Atlanta, but they in ATL loved Michael Vick because he played for Atlanta more than they loved you. And now all around the globe, it was about the Michael Vick experience. He was the black quarterback, right? Not mentioning all the white kids who loved Michael Vick. Every white kid that I knew had a Michael Vick jersey. They played Michael Vick on Madden 2004. They played with Michael Vick. Every white suburbanized kid that I knew had Michael Vick shoes and jersey. But they want to make him a black quarterback. Vick was viewing numbers. People wanted to see what Michael Vick would do. There were white kids out there playing like Michael Vick. But they want to tell you there's something to fear about Michael Vick. And then when the whole dog thing happened, they made the whole entire illegal dog fighting business, the face of it is Michael Vick. Knowing that it still goes on in Florida, it still goes on everywhere around this world. Nobody has been predicated on it, brought up on charges. There's organizations that run this from Puerto Rico all the way to Florida, to Georgia, and the southern states. Dog fighting is everywhere, rampant, still to this day. And even though Vic came back with Philly and redeemed himself, they was never going to let him forget any mistake he's had in the past. With anybody who has been a white athlete, we are often being told not to judge them on what they did in their past. The double standards and with the people that get into the media space are so scared to tell the truth because they don't own anything and have any position of power. So people like Whitlock want to find a narrative to try to tear him down. Calling Michael B. Jordan's Oscar win a DEI a win, Things of that nature that has nothing to do, not predicated on any research, any reasoning, just something to fit his ideology to keep the people that put him in this place happy. The racist people that put you where you are, you make them feel good about being racist. Because that's how they feel. So DEI hire. The Oscars are too woke. Well, was they asleep when all the white people was winning? I mean, damn, they act like all black people won now. Once black people win something, now it's woke. You know how many criminal things that they have done in these award shows towards blacks, and it was business as usual? I don't hear you saying that was a travesty. You know, Samuel Jackson not getting the Oscar for Pulp Fiction, you know. I didn't hear nobody say anything about that. But let's hear Cam Newton explain himself or go over some of the takes that Jason has stated.
And I just want to better understand, and in no way, shape, form is my intent to attack. I think we can learn from each other given this said conversation. Can you give me the timeline from what you can remember when that shift, when you said Cam goes from focusing on football, whether it was at Auburn, whether it was sometime in the NFL, to the latter part, to now to shifting his focus to a cultural icon? Could you really give me a said time, if you were to know, just to back that merit? And it's going to get me to a point here.
To the best of my ability, the first clue, which I ignored, was I think Peter King at the Combine, Peter King, the NFL writer, got in some controversy for making a big deal about you saying you wanted to be a cultural icon or something along those lines. I ignored that, and I think the first 3, 4, 5 years you're in the NFL, my memory, and I'm going off memory, very clean cut Cam Newton. I think some people say, and I think I researched this at one point, 2, 3, 4 years ago, but when Jerry Richardson either passed away or got removed, that he was kind of your mentor with the Carolina Panthers. Once that went away, I think that's when the hairstyle and the hats and the dressing up went to the next level. And I remember being on the show Speak for Yourself with Marcellus and who was it?
Once again, it's always about dressing up. Why is it always about dressing up? This is the thing that gets me. Why is it about dressing up? What is it? Oh, no. It wasn't Jay Marriott. The person didn't even cover sports. He's going to say the guy's name that motivated him, but this journalist was entirely different. Like, he was talk about like everything else, and he was just unfiltered. And he would have like one page in the paper, but it was never about sports. And Whitlock kind of got like, that's what I could do. Because in my opinion, this is the only way he could have a platform to be accepted. Because if he was to just write, people would omit him. He needs something to stand out. He's like, I will be that Uncle Tom. You know, I will be that because there's a reward in it for me. They need me to be one. They need a black face to say white ideals and pass those around to the rest of the world.
To unpack all of his plans and vision and got.
Let's go to Cam.
To get opportunities like said LeBron James, said Kevin Durant, said basketball players. But I learned that football players are considered masked athletes. Not a lot of people know exactly who they are if they take off their helmet. Now you may say Tom Brady, that's a outlier. You say Odell Beckham, that's an outlier. You say Aaron Rodgers, that's Josh Allen, those are outliers. But for the majority of football players, you do not, or you are not recognized outside of your number and how you look. So when he asked me the question, what are you to think about this particular deal? And I responded, I don't just see myself as a football player. I see this deal being created because I possess a power of being not just a football player, but an entertainer and an icon.
That's what he meant in context. See, a journalist would have asked Cam Newton instead of forging an opinion. He forged an opinion because his opinion was forged about how white America felt about it. So he didn't need to talk to Cam as a journalist to do what he claimed he was. So if you were a journalist, why didn't you do any journalism? Follow up and speak to Cam. But you didn't do that because you don't want the answer. The answer was given to you by the reaction of white America. And that was the answer you wanted to go with because it fits your narrative. It's going to make you stick out. Whitlock said this, Whitlock said that, when Whitlock wouldn't have any presence in the real world of things. But because he says the opposite, now he sticks out. Because in the other side of the space, he wouldn't exist. He couldn't compete with everybody else over there.
That subject matter was the subject of, and it caught fire, like Cam Newton sees himself as an entertainer and an icon, hence to the word, or to why we call iconic saga. And for us, it was to be able to, in that time, be able to control our narrative as athletes, and that was something out of context. Did I say it? Absolutely. But the question wasn't also inserted with the response. That's why the icon word kind of came. Now, second, when you start talking about the culture shift of Cam growing in his hair, when Cam's, worrying about fashion, it was around 2015, around 2016, to your point, and here's the reason why. There were still times in my career that I was still labeled, you're still.
Right. They edited, he said an N-word. Right. He's still going to be labeled as that.
A black man in America. Hence, I'll give you a real example. We go to Nashville, Tennessee. A fan for the Tennessee Titans had took out a column to complain that Cam Newton is thrusting in front of fans with all I was just doing was celebrating. There was also a time, why is Cam celebrating enough or celebrating too much, hence to why I did my celebration in front of the world for the Thanksgiving game that we played that same year in Jerry's World when we played the Cowboys. There are still examples of no matter what you are still labeled to some individuals this particular character.
Yep, that is the truth.
I understood that. And when I will have a conversation with said individuals, like I'm having a conversation with you, I'm not shameful to say I am proud to come from Atlanta, Georgia. When I go back to the communities where I'm from, I see way more people with dreadlocks than I see with fades, clean shavings, or whatever. So for me, nobody cares that I've given millions of dollars to the next generation of athletes. They don't care about that. They care about what Cam says when he's on First Take, when he's on 106 and Sports, when he's on 4th and 1, when he's on Funky Friday. But the visual is still important to when you start to see who's the voice behind what's being said, and is it relatable to the next generation? So
Yep.
it wasn't to be rebellious. It was always to stand for something, to say, bro, you don't gotta go to the NFL to be able to talk sports. Hey, you don't gotta go to the NBA to be a journalist. Hey, you don't even have to be good at baseball to cover the sport. You just have to have the willingness to study and know what you're talking about. And I've always stood on that principle, but there's times where athletes may have a response to something and they don't even realize the weight of their voice, the weight of their actions, and who they are really representing. And it is to say, there's been times where I've let people down. But I will not take that same route to say, tone it down. That's where I have to agree to disagree, to say, I can't do that. Because when I go to the corner stores, when I go to the barbershops, when I go to the grocery stores, when I go to so many different areas in Atlanta, Georgia, said places say, hey, bro, keep doing what you're doing. You're inspiring the next. Because when I grew up, I never had the opportunity to see a Mercedes-Benz with a person that was in that said Mercedes-Benz that did it the legal way.
You see? And look at him. Whitlock can't understand that because he didn't experience that. You see what I'm saying? You see how he don't understand it? Look how confused he looks. He looks confused because Cam knows what he's talking about. Look, like you said, he's the son of a preacher man. So Cam gonna preach. Now, here's the thing. He's correct. He gave you the context. I wasn't wearing my hair like this to be defiant. Styles changed. What was hot changed. The Lil Wayne, everybody started getting dreads. He stayed accurate with the culture in which he lived in the community. In ATL, everybody was getting braids, twisted. The low-cut fade wasn't really popping no more. He was staying currently in the times. He always wore hats. But now he started wearing one hat and he's like, man, I'm going to make this a thing. Just come out with different hats. He made it a style. Like he said, NFL players more than anybody. What's up, Jamil? NFL players more than any sport in the world is faceless because the NFL promotes that. That's why they say do not take your helmet off on the field. They want to highlight who they want to be the stars. They concentrate on the logo more than the player because players come and go in the NFL. They don't get to play 20 years. No. You be lucky if you get 20. And all that wear and tear and hits on the body, you be discarded like Adrian Peterson, one of the top rushers in NFL history, is in there punching people over a poker game in a doggone bar. Broke. Not saying that to shame him. I'm saying that to bring up a point. So all of these marketing opportunities wasn't usually there for that athlete. Definitely a black quarterback who, by the way, was passing for more yards than Peyton Manning. Their clean-cut guy. Why does Peyton Manning and Eli Manning dress the way they do? They wear khakis, they wear dress shirts, and they got the hair all super cuts. And they walk around the way they do in some soft shoes and because where they're from, that was their culture. Oh, why did I do that? Should have just left well enough alone. I would kick some and make it worse. Damn. Just stay there. Shit. Anyway. He said, I found out how to hype the video. Yeah, I don't even know how to do that. But anyway. The narratives always change when they want you to conform. I get points. I mean, what does the points mean? I've had no time to really look that stuff up. But anyway, what Cam is saying is that it's part of his culture. You don't understand it because you didn't come from the culture. Now, we could laugh and joke and say, man, if you put the pot roast down in the ribs, then you probably be able to understand what Cam is saying. And definitely support 4th and 1 with Cam Newton. And I appreciate this. More people need to do this. They need to actually sit down like Cam and Whitlock did and actually have a conversation. It's saying, okay, we have a differences of opinion. Let's talk about it. I want to know, why do you feel this way? I want to know why you move in the way that you move. There's nothing wrong with that. To ask that type of question, you should be able to explain why is it that you do what you do? Or at least the reason that you give. Here's the narrative. Going back to Peyton and Eli. They dress the way they dress because people in their neighborhoods, in their communities, dress the way they dress. That's why they dress that way. They didn't pick that out and said, hell, this is the style. You think John Elway was wearing those checkered shirts? John was dressing that way because the people he hung around, which was 99.9% Caucasian, they all dressed the same way. They all went to the same damn Supercuts. So you got to understand that in their society, this is what works for them. You see somebody in Oklahoma and they wearing a doggone flannel shirt, red and black checkered, flannel shirt looking like a checkerboard with some jeans on and cowboy boots and a cowboy hat. And he's like, oh man, this must be your style. It's like, my style? Shoot, everybody in here wearing this. He's dressing for his environment. They all wear, this is like the style there. This is what's popping. So Cam, who is an entertainer, don't want to be left behind in a style that is not normally prevalent anymore. Hence why T.I. was changing his hair to try to stay in the game, trying to stay current with the times so that the younger generation might not even remember you as a football player. Improving the image of the culture. Here's the thing. What is the image of the culture? And what culture are we talking about? What is the image of the culture, Paul? And what culture are you talking about? What image is that? The black culture and how profiling exists. Of course profiling exists. And you don't beat profiling by conforming to what they want you to do for the profile, right? You would have to fight the system. Meanwhile, now you got more people being able to wear their hairstyles the way they want to when they go to work, and it's judged on their work, not by what their hair looks like, right? I've seen lawyers now in courtrooms with braids. They're not judged. They're in nice suits. They're ready for court. They got braids. Some of them got dreadlocks because that's part of their culture. So when you start talking about black culture, is it really black culture? Or it's the black culture that white people want us to have? They want us to look like them, dress like them, want to be that. Oh, that's black culture. Who are they to tell us what our culture is? We don't tell them what their culture is. We'd be like, hey, wait a minute. Where's the goddamn khaki shorts? I don't see any khaki shorts here. Hey, you're not doing white culture. Hey, yo, we gotta get this dude. He ain't part of white culture. Dog, them not khaki shorts. I'm going for a run. Yeah, but where's your khaki shorts? Where's your polo shirt with your lapel? With the logo on the lapel. Oh no. This is not white culture. We gotta get you up out of here. Now, this is how they move. I know, but stating what Whitlock said is not a good thing. That's like going around quoting Trump. You're asking for disaster. Like he said, they forced him to cut his braids when he was young. A lot of black people were forced to cut their dreadlocks, cut their braids. They're forcing him into a cultural society of this is the way you have to be to get a job. Meanwhile, white kids can do whatever they want. How many white kids are in the punk rock, metal band rock? Yeah! Da-da-da-da. They got tattoos everywhere. They praising Satan. They doing all kind of shit. And they praising Satan, going to church on Sunday. Crazy, right? They go through all wearing all black. Oh, they're just going through a goth phase. They call it a phase. They don't say, that's upsetting the white culture. Right? So we got to be careful sometimes with who we're quoting until we understand the reasons behind what they are doing. lot of people like, man, you tear down LeBron James because there's money in it for you to tear down LeBron James. No, I just tell the truth about LeBron James. That's it. Some people came along before that, but I was here long before LeBron James. I'll tell you that. And I rooted on him to be successful. I wanted him to succeed because everybody had pretty much written him off as another NBA experiment, pushing these young kids before they should be. So if you see those scenarios, then you understand it. Me, it was always different. It was always completely different with me. I was to tell the truth, tell it like it is. Everything I said about LeBron has been true. Each year he proves me right because he's not going to change. He's a team destroyer. He's narcissistic. He does nothing but tear down. The NBA system is broken. That's how I saw it. That's why they brought in NBC and everybody else to try to rewrite the ship. Because the system is broken. You weren't promoting team, you were promoting just player. And then these players got so entitled, they choosing when they want to play, disrespecting the game, bringing liquor on the sidelines. It's like, dude, you doing way too much and you got way too much freedoms to come in here and disrespect the game the way you was. They gave too many liberties to people who don't understand it's a privilege. Now, as much as I see Jason Whitlock and how he talks about professional athletes, man, they just keep kicking me off, huh? Now, much as I hear about all of this and they talk about professional athletes, etc., right? As much as I hear about all this and what is supposed to pertain to the energy, the course of action, everyone's opinions should be valid, right? Everyone's opinion should have a voice. Everyone's opinion should be heard, at least. There should be some type of retribution for everything that you hear. Right. I think behavior should be the focus more than what someone is dressing like. What are they acting like is what you should be focused on. I knew a dude who was completely metal, bueno band, rock out every day. Was one of the nicest individuals you ever meet. Calm, don't bother anybody. Hated concrete. He wanted to be on land, grass. He suffered from color blindness, but still, he didn't like to be on concrete. He wanted to be on grass. He was like, man, I like grass. I like going in the woods. Can't be around all this concrete, man. It just irritates me, man. I need to be around grass and soil. So he would go out to the woods all the time, just experience life. So I'm like, well, you go do that. I need this concrete. I need this concrete and all that it provides. Now, start taking that journey into what that truly means, right? What it truly means to benefit when you listen to the words of what Cam is actually stating how he felt. It was great. Had he listened to Whitlock, let's say he just did exactly what Whitlock suggested he did. You know what he'd be known as? Cam, the good guy, who we don't talk about no more. There's no Cam on First Take. There's no Cam on 4th and 1. And if he did do it, we would think of it as phony because he never portrayed any of this as he was playing. He would be written off. So, as people consistently make the same error over and over again. Yesterday was the first hot day. Now we back to freezing temperatures. Welcome to Chicago, where you don't trust it. Lena, who happened to be one of the greatest architects there was, right? She's a black woman. And Lena decides, I want to go ahead and design these homes, right, in this area. Now, Miss Lena, she dressed Afrocentric. She wears pretty much like just Afrocentric type of things. She's got her rings on. She's got these bamboo bracelets on her wrist. Her hair is braided. It's got the gray in it. It's a lot of hair. And this lady is one of the world's greatest architects. But she was architecturally designing a home for this wealthy, rich company who never saw her before. And they dismissed her as if she was the help or an assistant. And she says, no, that's me. And they apologize. Oh my God, because they knew of her work. She's extraordinary in her architectural designs, her creativity, everything that she brings to the table. Then they started to treat her differently once they realized they made a mistake. Now, she didn't harbor on the thing, but she used it as an example to show that we have prejudice and bias because of what society pushes as this is what's acceptable. Anybody dresses like this is unacceptable. And I'm just saying, sometimes I might wear a shirt with a sweater vest because that's what I feel like wearing. I never sagged my pants a day in my life, even when it was the style, because that's not what I wanted to wear. I didn't want to rock that. I wear what I want. I'll be like, I set the trend. Whatever I wear is hot because I say it is. The clothes don't make me, I make the clothes. I make it pop. I've never seen Jim Jones wear something to make me say I want to get it. When I see Jim Jones in it, I go, oh my God, he just made that look terrible. It looks dirty and dingy because he looks dirty, nasty, and dingy. So for me, those narratives always change. Well, when you look at the analogies, right, and you start putting things together, and you start saying to yourself, all right, let's put the puzzle together. What is Cam really saying? What is his examples really are? Right? Can we trust it? My opinion is this. Cam is speaking about himself. He's not speaking for the generalization of all black people. He's speaking for himself, about himself, and how he feels. He asked him, why do you attack? I hear you say John Elway is your favorite, right? But why you don't have this vitriol for like John Elway, Brett Favre, or any of these other athletes? You never hear them mention anything about Baker Mayfield, do you? Remember Baker Mayfield? He was being compared to Johnny Manzel. Oh, we got another Johnny Manzel. Baker's a problem. Baker did this. And Johnny Manziel had done so many different things wrong in the NFL. And you know what? No one corrected him. No one, not one person stepped up and said, hey, you know Johnny Manziel? We need to correct him. Not one person. Not one person came in his direction. And why is that? Why did they choose to not do that with Johnny Manziel? It's very easy. Because see, Johnny Manziel makes it real. He's the exception to the rule, right? Like they would say, Tom Brady, when he was talking about NFL players keeping their helmet on and people don't really know what they look like when they take their helmet off. Because they want you to keep your helmet on because they promote logo. But they say, well, what about Tom Brady? Those are the exceptions. But the rule of thumb is, in the overall rule of things, is that most players are not recognizable because they keep their helmet on. So that lessens brand opportunities, brand marketing. That's only for a selected group of NFL players. So now, because of the internet, they have to create their brand through social media so people can know what they look like. Like Peanut Tillman. That played for the Bears. The man who invented the punch. You know? We're sitting there and we're watching it. And we're in great awe and deal of respect because we couldn't understand for the life of us how he was able to be successful in the latter parts of his career. Nobody really knew what he looked like. People were walking right by him and didn't even know what he looked like. Now, what are the narratives? The narratives of that is that you never got a chance to see him. Like, how many tight ends get the exposure that Travis Kelce get? Not many. Shannon Sharp barely got any exposure. And that's why most of you guys didn't know, unless you were part of, you know, Denver Bronco lore, you would know. You knew of Shannon, but you rarely knew what Shannon Sharp looked like until he started talking. And Shannon was always talking. But most people didn't know Shannon Sharp or didn't see him until he played with the Ravens. He got more exposure with the Baltimore Ravens than he did with the Denver Broncos. Only time was during that Super Bowl against Atlanta. When he stood up for Ray Lewis and he started doing all the talking, doing the press of the Super Bowl, everything, he right there for Ray. Shannon did all the talking. Shannon had his back the whole time. Of course, Johnny Manzel made millions in college under the table. That's just one. Johnny Manzel, let's go to that. This man had violated everything before he even touched the football. Getting in fights, failing drug tests, and they still swept it all under the rug. Good old Cleveland. Then what else they do? Johnny Manzel decides it's going to be very prevalent for them, right? Very prevalent. It was very prevalent for them to go in a direction that they're going to put him in rehab. They put Johnny Manzel in rehab. And he wasn't even a great quarterback. He wasn't even that great in college. And then people were like, dude, he's getting destroyed. In practice, he looked terrible. He was all hype. And they made so much money off Manzel, selling his jerseys and everything. Johnny Football. And it reminded me of the movie Johnny Be Good. And they were like, Johnny Be Good or Johnny Be Bad. I'm like, did they just make a real life version of Johnny Be Good? In America, that's what they wanted to provide. They wanted to push. They want to promote this. This is what they want. Yeah, well, you never really know, right? Unless you know. Here's the things that truly matter to the actual public in the generalization of society, right? You actually have to know what you're talking about. You feel me? You got to know what you're talking about. Of course they gave him $2 million. What else would they give? Johnny Manzel right now. Johnny Manzel. Did you know Johnny Manzel is banned? Thank y'all for the super chat. Appreciate that. But yes, my cash app is still Carceno. Karceno. Johnny Manzel right now is banned from the NFL, and it's never been reported what he did. This dude had beat his girlfriend and was still in the league. This man was getting drunk in Vegas, doing blow, everything, still in the league. Then got another chance. And got banned from the NFL. And they never divulged why. To this day, the NFL has given no statement as to why Johnny Manzel is banned. If you want to know about what's happening with Usher and Justin Bieber, we have that on the Patreon, my Carceno for Life Patreon. So it's definitely over there. They never told you one reason why Johnny is banned. Not one. Then guess what? He gets a shot in a ring in what's that, Canadian Football League, gets banned from the NFL and gets a shot in the Canadian League. Again, I know you're gonna ask, where do they do that at? And why? It's conformity. So Baker Mayfield had to fight that he wasn't a nuisance or a mess like Johnny Manzel, because he was the same way in college. Baker Mayfield, who's a better team leader, and guys will fight for him because he's one of the guys. He never felt he was bigger than the players, a superstar like that. But Baker was wild, got in a lot of trouble, and the coaching staff and everybody covered up for him. And the reports was coming out, this guy's another Johnny Manzel. So he had to fight that his entire life. No. Here's the thing. Cam Newton was never a wildcat football player. Okay, let's get that adjusted right now. That is a fabrication. Cam Newton has never been a wildcat football player. I never said he did drugs. I'm saying he was wild. He was out there partying, drinking, doing things that were counterproductive to what other people would consider standard. Johnny Manzel, if you watch the movie Draft Day with Kevin Costner, that was pretty much the Cleveland Browns drafting Baker Mayfield. Bo Callahan, the quarterback, Bo Callahan. there was a disturbance, a natural disturbance in the force. That people didn't believe in him. His teammates didn't like him. Johnny Manzel. Teammates couldn't stand him. He felt he was better than everyone. This usually doesn't fare well for anyone else who comes into this country and comes into money. They knew he was getting money under the table from boosters, everywhere else. They didn't care. It's all about the image, what it looks like, what we need to sell. I know they need Kevin Costner to come in and be the GM to fix the Browns. Myles Garrett was Mac. Take Mac no matter what. Yeah, watching that movie always made me eat pancakes. It did. Watching that film made me want to eat pancakes. Non-stop pancakes. Tebow just wasn't a great quarterback, and they weren't going to take any more risks with Tim Tebow. Even though he was winning games, eventually that's going to run out. He just wasn't a great quarterback. And then the receivers who was bailing him out from all the garbage he was throwing up there. And it was a great Tim Tebow run. But they was like, now it's time to pay Tim Tebow. And nobody in the league paid Tim Tebow. Hey, I made money with Tim Tebow. I rode that wave. Them confidence pools, I was winning them every week. The comeback win against Pittsburgh, that won me another confidence pool. I was riding the Tebow wave. But it was a wave. Believe me, when no other football team will pick you up, you can't play the position. Brady's an athlete. He just didn't play football. Tom Brady played everything. Tom Brady was a great baseball player. He had got drafted, I believe, by the Yankees. Tom was just exceptional. Everything he wanted to do.
As the counter. Do you understand? Whitlock, the way that you critique the culture or black entertainers or black athletes or black, subjects is completely different than how you critique the Caucasian subject. When I hear you talk about Deion Sanders, when I hear you talk about Cam Newton, when I hear you talk about Joy Taylor, when I hear you talk about Stephen A. Smith, those subjects to me is like, all right, well, when you talk about John Elway, when you talk about Brett Favre, when you have conversations with Tucker Carlson, with Fox News and talking politics and things, it just doesn't give the same type of energy as the counter. Do you understand?
I understand what you're saying, but it's just not factually true. And it would be like, I've had access to watch the overwhelming majority of your NFL games and games at Auburn. You haven't had access to watch how I operate as a journalist. You see glimpses and pieces, but you can go throughout my entire history as a journalist. Do you know who Marty Schottenheimer is or was? Carl Peterson was the general manager of the Kansas City Chiefs. I was based in Kansas City, that's where I made my name. Marty Schottenheimer and Carl Peterson and Scott Pioli and Todd Haley, who was the head coach at the Chiefs for a time, any of these guys. These are all white guys. They would all say, like, Cam, you're crazy, man. This dude killed me and killed us. And talked about it, and again, there's receipts for all of this, but you didn't follow the Chiefs, you're not from Kansas City, the internet wasn't as pervasive. Even today, to what I do today, you're not interested. When I criticize a Bruce Pearl that I started my entire show with yesterday, goes completely over your head. But trust me, Bruce Pearl is completely aware that I trashed him all yesterday. Bill Belichick got this little 25-year-old sugar baby. The only time your ears perk up, and this isn't an attack, is like, oh, Deion, because I like Deion and I see him, blah, blah, blah. All you care about is that I attack black people. But the facts are the facts.
Now he brings up a point. Right? He brings up a point. That black people are only concerned with Whitlock when he talks about black people. I told you, ignore Whitlock. Ignore him. That's it. That's all you got to do is ignore him. Why people are so predicated on what he has to say. Let it go. The provocations. Has been brought to my attention because of all of these layers that has been provided before us. Right? That Whitlock is not speaking for us. He's speaking in our position of what we would call a scared black man. He's got a scared black man position. And he's speaking from a position where he feels powerless. The only time he feels power is if he's attacking people of us or it's safe. Yeah, it's safe for him to call out Bill Belichick, him dating a young girl, because conservative white males don't like that. So for him going after some white guys that the conservative party doesn't care about, they have no concern. But he's never went against anybody who was conservative, who was white, and have done anything. I've never seen him do that. Belichick and what he's doing with this dating this 20-year-old, they view as disgusting. And do the media ask Belichick anything about his dating life? In the post game? Anything? No. Because they will be removed. So we spent about an hour and a half on this one. So I think that's more than suitable enough time. Don't forget to watch this whole interview. Go watch it on 4th and 1 with Cam Newton. And, get some teachable lessons. We think we've covered enough of this so far. Even though he's just rambling now and he's going to talk about a writer from Chicago and all of this stuff. Go on and check it out. I respect both men for actually going up there and having a conversation. Something I think more people should do instead of running because they don't want to face anybody. All right, y'all, I'm out.